I knew I have to talk about this. I knew that I want
Right?
to introduce
I
everyone
think
to this
most of us do. We just become
because
like
yeah,
obsessed.
because I discovered this thing where you can just literally just take the information that your body is already giving you and use
Mhm.
it to prevent pregnancy, have amazing insight about your, hormonal and general health. I can't really see how someone cannot benefit from it at all.
Welcome to Cycle Wisdom Chats, where we dive into the world of fertility awareness, hormonal health, and our womb wisdom. I'm Mary Aline, your certified fertility awareness educator. I am super excited to welcome this guest, Kristen Fernandes, onto Cycle Wisdom Chats. Kristen and I go way back. We both graduated from the same fertility awareness program together. And Kristen is based in Poland near the capital. She was actually 17 years old when she found cycle charting, which is always blows my mind. And Kristen's been teaching people how to track their cycles since 2020 and personally charting for over 9 years, which is like awesome. She focuses on education about cycle tracking and non-hormonal contraception and menstrual health. And she supports her clients in exploring health, contraceptive options, and education around female biology. So, welcome, Kristen. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Well, you probably know the drill. We've been doing this practice since we first started in Sarah Bly's program together, but let's do a little cycle check-in. So share with me anything that you want about your cycle and where you are right now.
I love that. I feel like that kind of reminds us of our cyclical nature that, that this is the moment in time that we're meeting and it's different. We both could be at it from a different perspective or the same perspective, right? So I'm on cycle day 18. I just confirmed ovulation today as per the contraception rules. So I'm just freshly into my luteal phase. Not feeling it super yet, but I'm in this kind of in between space that feels good. What about you?
I'm just looking at my chart. I'm like currently charting on Read Your Body. I'm also curious, what are you doing paper charts still?
Yes, I'm old school.
Old school,
Yeah.
but also don't you create your own charts?
Yes, I used to hand draw all of my charts, and just recently I came back to just printing. So I just printed out, like 14 charts for the whole year, and I just fill them in every day. I don't know, there's just something about paper charts that I really enjoy. I don't know, it feels like we're already spending so much time on our phone, and that's just like another thing. And I have like because I told you before, I've been charting for 9 years, so I have a lot of cycles, and I have this little stack of my paper charts, and it just feels so nice to like see a physical representation of that. However, I'm not dissing apps at all. I totally like Read Your Body. I think is an amazing app, and I can totally see why a lot of people want to keep their data there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There I kind of go back and forth, but I do love the like kinesthetic experience of like circling my temperature,
Mhm.
like shading in my cervical fluid.
I realize that most people don't want to hand draw their charts every month, but I am a nerd about charting, and it's my little special interest, and I just love it. It's my like ritual every month.
Yeah.
I took a new chart. I took like the 30 minutes to set it up, and it was just something I always did on cycle day like one or two. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like a really nice ritual to have.
Mhm.
A way to just like start this new cycle, right? Like
Mhm.
this like set the intentions for this next however many days. Um yeah. So I'm on cycle day 12 and I just had my point of change this morning. So I'm just entering into my fertile window. I felt some watery cervical fluids. So I was like, time to open that fertile window. And yeah, I'm definitely feeling a little bit more energized which is nice. It's interesting. I've noticed the last few cycles, the shift from like my period into my early and fertile days is like really clunky and awkward. Like I just don't want to do it. Like I just would love to just like stay in that like period energy, which for me is just like more I feel more clear, feel more, like, internal, slow, like, it almost gives me permission to do those things,
Mhm.
and then I feel like that yeah, that, like, transition to my early and fertile days when I'm, like, in this in-between phase, I'm just, like, a little bit more grumpy.
Mm. I agree, there's something like in between. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you discovered fertility awareness when you were, what, 16, 17?
Yeah, 17. I actually completely on accident, I came across just a random YouTube video. I can't remember who it was, but it was this girl who just had like a lifestyle channel, and she was talking about using charting for contraception, and she was referencing the book that's really popular, Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Tony Wessler. And she was just saying that she's been using that with her partner for some years and that it's very effective. And I was like, okay, I'll just check out the book. I just Googled the book. And I was already researching contraception around that time, just trying to see what my options were. And I've always been like kind of nerdy, and I always did my own research, even as a kid. I loved that. I always loved, books and just knowledge, and I really liked biology in school. I never learned anything really useful about contraception in school, or really about our body, because you learn about just the menstrual cycle in theory, right? Like you learn like that you have a uterus and like an ovaries. You learn like the anatomy, and then you learn about how the cycle works, but it doesn't actually give you any information about how your cycle works, because what am I supposed to do with this information? Like, just because I know that my FSH rises and then my LH rises around ovulation, I can't actually see that, right? So I never really learned anything in school. I kind of thought that I'll have to use either hormonal contraception or the copper IUD if I didn't want to use that.
Mhm.
So when I came across this book, it had really good reviews. I just was interested in biology, so I was like, okay, I'll just see what it is.
Mhm.
And when I was reading it, I remember I was just so pulled in. I think it's a pretty thick book. I don't know if you've seen like the
Yeah.
paper the
Yeah.
copy. Yeah, it's a pretty thick book.
It's
I think I devoured it in a few days.
yeah.
And I was so ready to start, but I was really skeptical about it too, because I was reading about this like, oh, and then you can see these biomarkers, and then this changes, and that means this. And I was like, okay, that really makes sense on paper, but will that actually work for me? Because I don't know, I just kind of thought, because I've never really seen any symptoms, I've never noticed anything around my cycle at all before. I was like, will I actually be able to see all of this? So I
Mhm.
decided to start, and I had to keep referencing the book because I couldn't remember, what everything meant.
Same. Totally.
Yeah, so I started doing that, and then I remember when I saw my first temp shift, I was so excited. I was like, I can't believe it actually works, because I almost didn't believe I would have that, right? And then I did a second cycle and a third cycle, and when I saw it like three times, I was like, okay, I don't think this is a mistake. I don't think this is an accident. I think this really is how the body works, and I just needed to see it like empirically on myself, because just because something works on paper or on theory doesn't mean it's gonna work for me. So I started then, and I started using it for contraception up really soon. And I've been using it for contraception also for the entirety of those 9 years. And yeah, and I haven't missed a single cycle. So I have all of those charts. I probably have around 140 right now, charted cycles. I'm just really in love with the practice. I love how, flexible it is. Like, on one hand, with the pill, especially if you're taking the progesterone only pill, like you have to take it every day at the same time. And okay, that's the same thing with temperature, right? But if you miss a few days, it's fine normally. if you don't take your temperature when you have your period, you can take a few days off. After you confirm
Mhm.
ovulation, you can also like it's like strict in a way, but it's also very lenient, which I love. I love the flexibility that it gives in the end. So I've been able to do it imperfectly, of course, but I've been able to do it consistently because of how flexible it is. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got started. And okay, one more thing. When I got into it, and I was at the first, especially the first year when I was charting, I knew I have to talk about this. I knew that I want
Right?
to introduce
I
everyone
think
to this
most of us do. We just become,
because
like,
yeah,
obsessed.
because I discovered this thing where you can just literally just take the information that your body is already giving you and
Mhm.
use it to prevent pregnancy, have amazing insight about your, hormonal and general health,
Mhm.
to get pregnant if you want to get pregnant, to plan like your labs if you need to check on something. It's just such a good place to just get in touch with your body, just with your cycles. There's just I can't really see how someone cannot benefit from it at all, And so I was kind also had this anger. I think a lot of people have that as well.
Yeah,
That
totally.
why isn't anyone talking about this?
Yeah.
And that's also where my skepticism came from at first, is that if this is so awesome, like why isn't anyone talking about it, right? And then
Yeah,
later when you get down to other subjects, you see that it's that way in a lot of different fields, not just women's health, that we are not informed about all our options, and we often don't know about the things that maintain our health. We just know about solutions when something is going wrong.
totally. Yeah, absolutely. Is there any, like, habit hacks that you use to help you remember or, like, thinking I know it's been 9 years, but, like, in the beginning of your, like, cycle tracking journey, was there anything that, like, really helped you, like, get that habit into your, like, everyday?
To be honest, no. And I feel like
You're just an A student,
no,
Kristen.
I was just so excited about it. Every day I just
Totally.
wanted to see what my temperature was. I couldn't forget about it. I was just
Yeah.
so into it, especially, especially the first like 6 to 12 months. I was just so into it. I was just so fascinated by fertility awareness. And then, later, I don't feel that the same way anymore. Like I still love it, but I'm not like looking forward to taking my temperature every morning, right? So now it's a habit, but I feel like, that time that before it became a habit, I just powered through it through sheer enthusiasm about the method. And I have this talk with my clients a lot because a lot of people do like, they can't, like they forget or they don't like this aspect or just they're just not just that excited about it, which is, completely normal. And I feel like with the temperatures, I mean, just having what do you call it? The alarm clock in the morning and just keeping your thermometer on it, not
Yeah.
next to it, like on it. So you have to like move it and like, remember that and just get through the first few months. It gets easier. I feel it with time. And with cervical fluid, I know a lot of people keep a little note in their bathroom somewhere. Or I've seen women just like do a little note on their thigh or set little reminders on their phone. Yeah.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
what do you do? What do you recommend, or what was your journey when you first started with the habit forming? I guess.
I was also super excited as and enthusiastic, and I was living nomadically at the time, so it was, like,
Mm.
a little bit more challenging because I was sleeping in a lot of different places, I was in a lot of different bathrooms, so I couldn't, like, leave myself notes about things. So I first actually started just with taking my temperature because that felt, like, easy, like, that felt like the easier, like, very black or white sort of, like, data, um, and I just have, like, a little travel bag that I take with me still, and it has, like, eye mask, earplugs, and my thermometer in there, and so that just gets put on my bedside table, wherever
Mhm.
that may be, and then after I felt sort of comfortable with that routine, I added in cervical fluid checks. And that's like the more gray part of this practice where it's like subjective. Maybe you're tuning into this, these things coming out of your body for the first time, and you're like, what am I seeing? So I
Mhm.
definitely had to like go back and like reread a lot of the book again. Just like I had to reference it a lot to be like, well, what am I seeing? And, I would have loved to have had a friend or like anybody else to just like share in this practice with, because I feel like that would have been like more exciting and also more supportive of like what's happening in your cycle, like what are you seeing, like do you want to
Yeah.
share pictures of your fluids with me, like any of that. I feel like I would have loved to have that when I was learning.
Yeah, I didn't have any people that were interested in either, and, like, whenever I taught my friends about it, they kinda thought I was a little bit crazy, or they thought that it was just way too much work to do
Yeah,
that, so I was mainly on my own, but I feel like that's also why we're here as educators, is just to be also that, like, community, I guess, and that support, for people during their especially in the beginning when they're learning, right?
totally.
Mhm.
What's something that you learned about yourself through tracking your cycle?
Um, well, when I started, like I said before, I was really young, so I was never really in touch with my body at all.
Mm.
I really had no like I didn't have this like internal sense of like what is happening, like how am I feeling? And I feel like cycle tracking was the first thing that kind of showed me like, oh, okay, learning about your body has a lot of really positive implications, and it's a very good like skill to have, and that kind of just got me down the road to start other like mindfulness slash body awareness practices in my life, and I just feel like I'm at a point now where I know my body so well, like
Mhm.
and I started I started at a place where, when I started charting, when I had a stomach ache, I didn't even know like what part, like what is hurting me. I had no idea. I
Mhm.
had like no internal sense. And also with my cycle, it was the same thing. I never really knew when I was in my cycle. My cycles were fairly regular, so that was the only way I would know when I was going to bleed. But yeah,
Yeah.
other than that, I had no idea what was going on. So I think that was the biggest part about that.
Yeah, that's super interesting. You're talking about this like internal felt sense. And I think that is a really big skill that cycle tracking
Mhm.
really helps you tune into the internal sensations that we're feeling. Um, I could like nerd on that a lot because I talk as an occupational therapist, which that was my main career before I stepped into fertility awareness. I did a lot of work around that. Specifically, it's called interoception. It's how we
Mhm.
understand and like put meaning to the sensations that we're feeling and what behaviors they trigger for us. I think a lot of people don't even realize like how how much that could really support them in their health and wellness journey.
The word interoception is exactly the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
I feel like that encompasses everything that we're talking about now.
If you have enjoyed or if you found value from this video, please give it a like. I'm curious about the activities that you were sharing that cycle charting sort of like opened up your world to around like body awareness and body literacy.
Well, I just went down other routes, just a lot of psychosomatic work.
Mhm.
So just realizing how the mind and body like play together. Also, just little things like the gym. Like I started going to the gym, and when I was talking with my trainer, who's also my friend, she was telling me how many people start and they just have no idea like how their body is positioned, or how like which muscles they're supposed to be using, and she's asking me like I'm doing an exercise and she's asking me what are you like which muscle is working right now, right? And sometimes I wouldn't even know, like I didn't know like what I was feeling during. It just wasn't just in my body. I
Yeah.
wasn't fully present, and that's also a skill that you develop. And also just the cycle charting itself, okay, like I know now, I know where I am in my cycle even without charting. To be honest, I feel like I wouldn't have to chart to know. I wouldn't recommend that to anyone, and I still chart, and I think it's still valuable, but just going for so many months of, cross-checking my feelings and my
Mhm.
internal interoception
Mhm.
with the facts that I'm seeing on my chart has given me like this feedback of, okay, this is this feeling and this is that. And okay, so I know that part, but also like your cycle, the energy of the hormones that you're having, it really does affect everything in your life.
Mhm.
Um, so I feel like that the part of just like living in accordance to your cycle, I feel like that also opened up for me because of charting.
Yeah. What would you say is a hidden benefit to cycle charting? So beyond like the
Hmm.
fertility piece and the contraceptive piece, like have you noticed or yeah,
Uh, I think I have two. One of them is the like knowing how long your luteal phase is.
cool.
Okay, so I never had any really cycle issues when I was like a young, teen around the time before I started charting.
Mhm.
Never had any, painful periods or any like irregular cycles or anything. But when I started charting, I realized that my luteal phase is too short.
Mm.
So it could be around like 9 days, which
Mhm.
isn't, it isn't the optimal range. And I would never know that if it wasn't for cycle charting. And I think I've seen that so often
Yeah.
with women nowadays. I don't know if it's like I know that I know that our teacher said that she noticed that that they used to be longer on average in her practice, and
Mhm.
I've seen the same. I've seen a lot of short luteal phases, and I feel like most people wouldn't know that if it wasn't for charting. And I think the second thing is just the independence that you have from,
Mhm.
medical procedures. And also when you are going into the medical system, you are going in way more informed than the average person. And that's helping you make good decisions around your health, around
Yeah.
your fertility, because you are coming from a place of like empowerment
Mhm.
and just this baseline knowing of how your biology works, and
Mhm.
then you can make a lot of sense of different things, and you're making choices from a completely different place. And
Totally.
the trust that comes from that in your body, I feel like um, just so much of the issues that we have as women with our health really comes from this like this trust of the body, like the female body is like this
Mhm.
anomaly, and it's like so unpredictable and everything is just crazy. And like a pregnancy and birth are almost like a thing to be treated as an illness, and same thing with menstruation. And I feel like there's just so many things tangled up that I'm not saying that charting is like a solution for all of that, but I think it is one of the most like practical, grounded ways where you can start like a starting point to untangle that. Because no matter how much you think about all of this, you can process all of your beliefs and thoughts around your femininity, your menstrual cycle, and all of that. It doesn't change the fact that there's also this like very practical work to be done, and
Yeah.
I feel like charting can be a really good place to start. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I was, like, super into the woo woo and, like, spiritual side and, I was
Before you started charting?
before I started charting and I was, like, connecting to, like, the greater aspects of creation and da 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 da, and then I had an unplanned pregnancy, and I was like, "Oh, well, like, I actually need a tangible, grounded practice if I don't wanna get pregnant again to help me, like, to help me understand my body." What would you say is the most I know we've probably touched on a lot of this, but what would you say is the most empowering aspect of cycle charting?
Uh, yeah, I think I would say that independence,
Yeah.
and just the you know the feeling of this the knowing, the feeling of knowing, and I would say that just the kind of living in accordance to your cycle, I think that has changed a lot for me. Just realizing, oh, like now I'm in this phase and I feel this way, and like being able to plan a little bit around your cycle. Like obviously, in the world that we're living in, we're not always able to
Right.
completely schedule our life in accordance to that. But still, I feel like just knowing where you are and giving yourself grace and giving yourself just those little things that will help you like nourish that part of your cycle, even if you still have to go to work and you don't want to, or even despite those things that are kind of working against us. I feel like that's really um, valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it was like this permissioning to be cyclical and to
Mm,
like not have to be the same
yeah.
way or want the same things or want to have sex the same way like every day of my cycle. Like it gave me like a permission to be more in tune with my own rhythm, and it also like helps me make choices. Like I feel so
Mhm.
inundated by choices, especially here in the US. There's just like so many choices when you go to the grocery store. Like there's just so much. And I feel like when I'm aligning with my cycle and attuned with my cycle, it's like yeah, it just helps me with some more clarity on like, do I actually want that today, or do I want to go do that thing, or even like planning activities with friends. Like I'm sort of known for the, yeah, let me I give myself like a little bit more space for committing to things because I really am trying to align with like what my body needs first and foremost. So that I feel like has just helped me be like not so judgmental on myself when I'm like, oh, there's this amazing show that I really want to go to, but I'm like not feeling it. And I'm like, oh, well, like I'm like deep in my luteal phase. Like, no wonder I'm not feeling it. And it's like, yeah, you can choose to stay home and rest. And that's probably going to be even more supportive to your body in the long run.
Yeah, I've also given myself like what I'm adding on to what you were saying. I've also given myself permission to show up in my luteal phasey self. Like I've been known to come to my friends, like if we were my friend's house, if we were meeting just in a group of a couple of people, and just lay down on the couch or the carpet and just not be so engaged as I usually would be, because I used to have this pressure on myself that if I'm going out with my friends, I have to be a certain way, right? And then realizing that sometimes just being in the presence of the other people can be enough, and then they just appreciate me being there. And even if I say just a few things here and there, it's still like I'm still there. I'm still being present. And I think yeah, just also like doing things that feel that are good for your body in the moment where you are, but also giving yourself permission to show up the way you are.
Yeah. It's
And
like,
instead of fighting it, because
yeah.
I don't feel like that ever really ends well. Like sometimes obviously, we can push through certain things, but if we're like constantly pushing through our whole lives, I feel like that can't be really conductive to, change or anything. I don't feel like anything ever really changes. It's just a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that resistance that we're constantly sort of meeting with. Um,
Mhm.
what what's like some of the biggest lifestyle changes that you've made that you feel like have really supported your cycle health and wellness?
Mm, I feel like I've done just so many things over the years, because when you start to get into it, it's like this and that and that. But I try to keep things really simple. I'm not one of those people who are like, like having a different tea for every part of your cycle, or recommending people like crazy supplement regimens, or like I feel like maintaining your health is and should be really simple.
Mhm.
And I think that the if you really take care of the basics, I feel like that's more than enough for most people. I feel like you know the basics do a lot. So I think, okay, I personally was vegan for a long time, like
Okay.
I think 7+ years.
Yeah.
I switched a few years ago to just an omnivore diet, and I feel like the just adding of healthy fats in large amounts and animal protein and just those products, I feel like that's done a lot for my body.
Mm,
And I know that people have different opinions about diet, and I'm not saying that this is the only way. And I personally was never, like sick or didn't have any like major issues on a plant-based diet, but I do feel like it's true that we need way more fats in our diet than men.
yeah.
So I think the diet part, I think the sleep part is a big part as well. And I think it's really overlooked. And it's also, the temping, if you're taking your temperature every day at the same time, like give or take an hour, it does motivate you to, take care of your sleep patterns. And yeah, I think those two pieces were a big were big for my cycle health.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I agree. I think I was eating well and I didn't even realize how much more fats that would be supportive for me. And I feel like that's really done a lot around my luteal phase length and to support my luteal phase.
I feel like oftentimes when I talk with women and I'm just asking them, just in our like in a session, for example, like what is your diet like? And they're like, oh, I'm very healthy. I have a very healthy diet. And I'm like, okay, so what do you eat? And they usually say what they don't eat. So I'm healthy because I don't eat fast food, because I don't eat meat, or I don't have processed food. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat this. And I'm like, okay, but what do you eat?
Yeah.
Like, just because you don't eat those things does not mean that you have a healthy diet. And I've seen so many people just having, not like there's anything wrong with salads, right? Obviously, salads are wonderful, but just having, salad, or just having, or even having a pretty good diet, like, right, like your carbs, your fats, and your protein, and your micros and macros are fine, but just not eating enough. Or
Yeah.
I've sometimes seen people just being low in like one or two things that
Yeah.
they only start noticing when they like track their food intake for a week. So I feel like for a lot of people, healthy means what you're not doing. And to me, healthy is more what you are doing. Because I feel like if I have a pretty good baseline diet, I don't think having a fast food once in a while or having something a little sweet every day after my lunch will impact my health in any negative way. So I've definitely become way more lenient about food, and
Mhm.
definitely are more focused on getting what I need than cutting and restricting. And I feel like that's very, um, I think that's more helpful for most people. I obviously people are different, and everyone works in a little bit of a different way.
And I also want you to share anything about your upcoming course offering.
Currently, I have an online course which is already up and available on my website. The course is in Polish. I do teach in English, but so far it's only been private clients. So if someone is interested in a session with me, then I am open to that. But currently, my offerings are the course, and it's a basic but pretty big course that teaches you all of the basics of fertility awareness, everything about your biology, and also all of your non-hormonal contraception options. So that's where it's focused on. And if you want to learn about fertility awareness in your own pace with interactive videos and materials, then yeah, that's my course currently.
Well, thank you so much, Kristen, for being on this podcast, and I really appreciate you. So, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure.